have a motion for approval of the minutes of the meeting held July 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No persons wishing to address today. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Conflicts of interest were proposed and put out there. Do I have a motion to approve the conflicts of interest?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the conflicts of interest signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Items 7A through F. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Supplemental consent agenda. Items A1 through 3 for Sanford Healthcare System. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries with 2 abstentions from Board Member Mickelson and Board Member Wright. Moving on now to the reports of the superintendent.
That was quick.
Sorry.
Well done. Thank you. Well, first I would say, Ann, welcome. I know this isn't your first meeting, but it's the first meeting where I've sat at the table with you. So welcome to the process.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is, today is our annual retreat. And our annual retreat is a date that's really set up to give us an opportunity to dig deeply into those things that ordinarily we wouldn't have this opportunity to dig into. So today we have an opportunity to really talk about issues regarding our relationship with the city, issues regarding implementation of the bond issue, construction, boundaries, some of those really big rocks that we have as we head into another year. And today's an opportunity for us to dig into that. And really cool today, I think, is it's an opportunity for us to dig into that right ahead of starting a new beginning, which will be the Ben Rifle Middle School. And I will tell you, along with Deanne Conrad, I had an opportunity to meet this morning with some of the family of Ben Rifle, and I think this afternoon will be a special event. I really do. So I look forward to that. With that, we'll begin by just going over maybe quickly what the retreat agenda looks like. We have Erica Beck here from the city, and in a minute I'll turn it over to Erica. And even before that, though, I'll say thank you and you're welcome to be here with us. We really appreciate you being here with us today. I'll get into that more in a minute. The strategic plan, as those of you who have been here for a while know, and even Nan was a part of it before she got on this board, that's really our marching orders. And so we look at that multiple times throughout the year to say, where are we? Where do we want to make sure we hit this next year? What areas are we really nailing, and what areas do we need to refocus on in regards to that strategic plan? I don't know if you heard, we have to do boundaries for the new schools. And so today we'll talk about the plan for putting those boundaries together. And I would tell you that plan today looks a whole lot like the plan we talked about 2 years ago when we started a planning process for the bond issue. So we'll get into the community aspect of that, the transparency that we'll put behind that planning, and then ultimately coming to that decision of what those new boundaries will look like. That'll be a big issue for us today. It'll be a big issue for us going forward. One of the things we'll also talk about today is the beginnings of the staffing plans for both the high school and the middle school. What do those look like, and how do we begin thinking about bringing a principal on board for those two buildings? We'll talk just a little bit from a theoretical standpoint of what programming might look like in a high school. We'll have what has now, I believe, our third annual update on specialized schools within the Sioux Falls School District. We'll talk about an organizational chart that talks about the new faces that we have in the school district. Some of those you see in this room, who you may not quite know who they are yet. By the end of the day, you'll know who they are. And we'll take a deep dive into the bond implementation. We think it is our duty to report to the community on how we're spending the money that they had intended when we passed that bond issue last September. All of you as board members remember what those promises were, and Nan, as the co-chair of the task force, you certainly remember what those promises were. And today we start talking about how we're delivering on those promises. We'll talk about the school year 2021 budget process and timeline. As you know, that never ends. We're never at the end of the budget cycle. We're always at some stage in actually multiple budget cycles. But today we'll talk about what does that beginning process look like. And after all that, we'll just close it up and head to the groundbreaking at Ben Rifle Middle School. So, any questions on what we're going to get done today? Okay, then with that, I will say that probably a few months ago now, Mayor Tinhagen reached out. We've had what I think is the beginning of a great relationship between the city of Sioux Falls and the Sioux Falls School District. We've had that for years. I believe that was in place before I got here. And I think you always wonder in transition, what is that going to look like going forward? I'm sure the city wondered it when I came on. I know I wondered after Mayor Huther left and the new mayor would come in, what would that be like? And I would tell you, we haven't skipped a beat, at least from my perspective. Mayor Tinhagen has done a tremendous job in continuing to forge a strong relationship with the Sioux Falls School District. So much so that I know the mayor, Erica as chief of staff, and other members of the mayor's cabinet have met with us on a regular basis. So I really feel comfortable about the relationship that exists. Well, part of that conversation was the mayor asked, would there ever be a time where I could come and speak to the board about matters of mutual interest? And those are my words, not his, but I think those are about what he said. And we set it up for today, which gives me the first opportunity I have to question the relationship with the mayor, because now all of a sudden he doesn't show up. Actually, I'm joking. I hope that wasn't taken out of context. Last week, the mayor notified us and said, I won't be able to be there, but I have full confidence in the capabilities of Erica Beck and her opportunity to carry on a dialogue with the Sioux Falls School District and be able to continue to forge that relationship. So Erica, we wish the mayor could be here, but we're tickled that you're here on his behalf. So I'm going to kick it over to you and let you take the appropriate shots at me now.
No shots.
Yeah.
No shots. Well, thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name is Erica Beck, and I serve as the Chief of Staff for Mayor Tinhagen. Mayor Tinhagen and his wife are celebrating their 20th anniversary, so he has good reason for not being able to make it today. I thought it was important for him to take his bride away and have some time to spend with each other. So I do have a couple of handouts. You know, I thought what would be good for us to just revisit today, because we've been talking about this a lot in the community, but not necessarily with the school district, is kind of that framework that we've set up within the mayor's office to use in order to define or guide our investments and our strategy for moving the city forward. And maybe you've heard of it, hopefully within the community and around town, so to speak, but we've tagged this as our One Sioux Falls framework. And so that's the card that you have in front of you, is that circle, that pie-shaped circle that really defines, again, the framework for which our decisions and some of our strategies are being made within the city. And on the back of that are specific values that our community, or our employees at the city have defined to be their value set that they want to live by moving forward. So that was one of the very focused items that we brought forward within the first year of Mayor Hagan's administration, and wanted to share with you today. And specifically because that framework, that One Sioux Falls framework, is really an extension of what it is that we're trying to do in terms of building relationships with all of our partners throughout the city, including the Sioux Falls School District. And that's why it's been so important for the mayor to work with Dr. Maher and the rest of his colleagues here at the school district to better understand how we can be of service to you all and better understand what types of trends, issues, opportunities you're seeing that we can assist with, whether that's through our capital programming efforts or through other efforts that we're bringing forward and initiatives that we're bringing forward. A good example of this is, of course, the success on moving forward with the construction of Jefferson High School and the need for the city to come alongside of all of you to ensure that we have the appropriate infrastructure to make that school successful on day one when it opens and operates. And that's why moving forward into the budget season at the city, you'll see us bringing forward and realigning some funds to ensure that we have Marion Road built out to the degree that it needs to be in order to accommodate the traffic that you all expect to see at Jefferson High School. So that's in part of the conversation today, but we want you all to know that we're a partner here with you, and we want to have more conversations like this as often as we need to. So thank you again for the opportunity. The second sheet that I handed out to the group defines what we're referring to as our BHAGs, and I'll just explain what those are real briefly here. A BHAG stands for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. And one of the things that we did when Mayor Hagan started in May of last year was we met with all of our directors throughout the various departments that we have at the city, and we really worked hard over the next few months in that term to define what it is that each of those departments really wanted to focus on moving forward over the next 4 to 8 years, so to speak, so that we could set those goals up within our One Sioux Falls framework and really start placing some focus on those efforts moving forward. Not all of these goals might be of interest to all of you, so I won't go through the entirety of the list because it'll take me much longer than my allotted time today. But I did want to point out just a few of them because a couple of them do, involve the school district in one way or another. You'll see under the mayor's office goals there, we do have housing growth defined. And I know that that's something that the school district is constantly looking at, whether that's because of the new families that you have moving to town or within your own workforce and their housing needs at the school district level. So please know with respect to this that we've completely redefined our focus on housing at the city. And over the last several months, we've re-strategized. We've hired a new housing manager to look at the opportunities to grow housing within our community in a much more comprehensive way than what we have in the past. In the past, we've always received some federal funding from the government to assist in providing very income-based housing within the community. Those federal funds are very limited, and they've been decreasing over the last 15 years pretty steadily. And so what we've tried to do is look at what our housing needs are within the community in a much more comprehensive way. With our new housing manager, who's just recently come on board within the last couple of months, we've tasked her name is Shelley Unruh, with identifying a strategy that we can roll out to the public and to the city council by August of this year. And specifically that will outline an opportunity to construct upwards of 1,000+ housing units within our community to help fill a multitude of city needs. And so those housing units could include even preservation of existing homes within the core of our community. We know that a lot of our institutions, just as an example, or businesses that are currently located in the core are expanding, and so they have an opportunity to relocate some of those homes in and around their campuses. That all is part of this effort over the next 3 to 3.5 years to assist in making sure that we're increasing our housing stock and preserving what we already have as well. You'll see a little bit more about this coming out over the next probably week or so even. Shelley Unruh, who's again our housing manager, will be making a presentation to our city council tomorrow at 4 p.m. at their informational meeting to talk about housing, just in general, what it is that we're seeing within the market right now, both on the rental side of the equation along with home ownership, and then how it is that her team is going to address some of these opportunities to expand housing in the near future. That will also increase police calls or increase code violations. And so they, in partnership with a number of our other departments across the city, including planning, our attorney's office, our police department, will be working on identifying a neighborhood in which they can very specifically target and pilot some initiatives to try to transform that neighborhood and turn it around, so to speak. So you'll be seeing more about that later this fall. They're actually going through the process of identifying all of the different data sets that we have internally as a city that we can use to target the best neighborhood for this purpose, and then work with various partners